When I talk about individual crime cases, most of the time it's from the UK. But I've come across a case from Wisconsin um, that I find very troubling. And it was kind of like on my, it was on a thumbnail at the side. It caught my attention and I looked into it. And I've watched a few videos about this. Now, before I get into this, I'm going to read out a report from the New York Post. But before I get into it, a few disclaimers. I have not studied this case extensively, so I don't know absolutely every angle of it. Um, that's, I guess, the main disclaimer. Um, so this video is really gut feelings. It's not like meant to be, if I was doing this as a journalist, this wouldn't be professional because it would just be my gut feelings, as opposed to straightforward delivery of all the facts. Um, but that's what my channel's about. This isn't a journalism channel per se. This is about me sharing my opinions on things. What I always do when I read out reports is I quote the journalist, and the facts as I know them. But that doesn't mean it's exhaustive. It doesn't mean, there may well be angles to this that I don't mention, and it may well be that something else emerges from this, and I think, oh well, actually, that's the case. But I don't think my opinion's going to change on this, because I can't see any context in which I would really see it differently. And looking at the opinions on YouTube, and the comments on this, I'm with the consensus, which is that basically, yeah, the outcome is wrong. So what we have is a situation where a middle-aged man was in a river in Wisconsin, and he was confronted by a group of drunk teenagers, and then they were joined by some adults, quite a large group. And the guy was trying to find his phone. He'd lost his phone. He was trying to find it, and it led to a confrontation over misunderstandings. He took out a knife. One teenage boy was killed, and some others were stabbed. But having seen the footage, it's disturbing footage, I think it's glaringly obvious that they surrounded him. And so my gut feeling is heavily on the side that he was acting in self-defense. But he's now facing a very long prison term. Um, in America, you hear these incredibly long, like, tariffs, 100 years in prison and stuff. I think if this man gets a harsh sentence, it would be a travesty. I'm going to read out the report. Um, I find the whole thing very troubling. I always assumed, or I've often assumed, that justice in America is harsher, particularly for youth crime. But I mean, in this case, he's the defendant, but there's something very rotten about this, something very rotten about the verdict. I'm going to just read it out. Reports by Jesse O'Neill, like I say, this is the New York Post. Nicolae Miu, that's MIU, found guilty in fatal stabbing death of teen in river tubing brawl. A Minnesota man was convicted on Thursday for fatally stabbing a teen and attacking four others during a deadly water tubing brawl on a Wisconsin river. I don't like the use of the term brawl there because it suggests it's equal, like it's one on one. This was a mob versus one man. A jury found Nicolae Mule guilty of first-degree reckless homicide, 4 counts of recklessly endangering safety, and 1 count of battery for the 2022 stabbing rampage that killed 17-year-old Isaac Schumann, according to the Star Tribune. Mew, 54, stabbed four other people in Schumann's group on the Apple River near Somerset, Wisconsin, following an encounter that was sparked by a search for a missing cell phone. The defendant had claimed he was acting in self-defense after the group taunted him and accused him of being a paedophile, and the footage corroborates that. They're clearly getting in his face, so surrounding him. That would be intimidating for anyone. He had reportedly told police that the group of young men and women between 17 and 24 had attacked him. That's ages 17 to 24 had attacked him and claimed he was in self-defense mode. The man lashed out with a knife used for cutting ropes as the group surrounded and taunted him while he looked for a lost cell phone with a snorkel while tubing with his wife. The St. Croix, that's CROIX County District Court panel in Hudson, Wisconsin, handed down the verdict after ruling out a more serious charge of first-degree intentional homicide. Still, defense attorney Aaron Nelson reportedly said he was surprised and respectfully disappointed by the decision of the jury, which consists of 6 women and 6 men. In many ways, self-defense is a community standard, Nelson said, according to the Minneapolis newspaper, and is very dependent upon which group of 12 people within the community you ask. Alexander Martin, Dante Carlson, Anthony Carlson, and Riley Mattison were also stabbed during the fracas, and Madison Cohen was attacked, prosecutors said. Muir had reportedly claimed he pushed Cohen because she was yelling at him and in his personal space, but witnesses said he punched her, starting the deadly fight, which was caught on camera by one of Schuman's friends. Some 3 dozen witnesses, including the defendant himself, had taken the stand during the 8-day trial. Prosecutors contended that Muir snapped out of anger, so they're trying to vilify the guy. The defense lawyer said he felt scared, trapped, and vulnerable following a heart attack and quadruple bypass surgery 2 years earlier. Muir faces more than 100 years in prison at his sentencing, which will be set at a future date, according to KSTP TV. I just want to thank all of our supporters, our family, law enforcement, people that have supported us that we don't even know throughout the country, state of Minnesota, wherever. Donny Hernandez, a spokesperson for the victim's family, said outside court, according to the station. It's been 21 months. We've been waiting for justice for Isaac Michael Schuman. He added, his voice breaking, and we got it today. So I just want to tell everybody I appreciate all your love and support. Now, I'm not going to say cold, callous things about a grieving father, and it's unfortunate that a young man died. But the fact of the matter is, this group was acting in a very, to use British vernacular, yobbish way. They were drunk. They were getting in his face. The footage speaks for itself. What he said seems to be corroborated by that footage, i.e., they were falsely insinuating that he was some sort of predator. Now, I'm 38, and I know for a fact if I was surrounded by a group of teenage boys, I'd be intimidated. I think there's this incredibly naive idea that teenagers are just harmless children. Teenagers have killed people. Teenagers, when they're drunk and when they have that group mentality, are capable of being very dangerous, actually. We've had cases in the UK where fathers have been killed because they've stood up to teenage yobs, vandalising their car or engaging in antisocial behaviour. There was a case there where I live, actually the same year, 2022. Actually, it was 2021. I think the trial was 2022. A young man was killed because teenage boys shouted taunts at him, and he confronted them, and then one thing led to another, and they laid into him. If the jury involved in this saw that footage and did not see, I mean, I appreciate, it may be that with Wisconsin law, their hands were tied, they had to rule a certain way. But if this man serves a life sentence for this, what sort of message would that be? The state of Wisconsin would be sending out the message that basically a mob can surround you and provoke you and threaten you, and you cannot defend yourself. Now, the fact that he had a knife, I wouldn't read too much into that. It's a river. It's a rope cutting knife. I think he had it, and it was useful. I don't think it was some sort of premeditated thing. I think this man genuinely felt scared, as anyone would, and I find it disgusting that the judge and the jury have apparently not bothered to put themselves in his shoes. And like I said, there may be more aspects to this. I can't see that being the case. I can't see any other angle that would justify against the self-defense argument. I mean, even if he was angry, often fear and anger overlap. So I just think it would be appalling if he gets a very long sentence for this. If I was the judge in this case, I would be seriously looking at a mitigating factor, i.e., he was acting in self-defense. Maybe not totally acquits him because he did lash out, but I would definitely give him a lenient sentence in that context. Because otherwise it sends out the message that a gang, a mob, can surround a man and do that, and they can't even defend themselves. As for the adults involved, because apparently initially it was this teenage group, and then they got some adults involved, and they then stuck their nose into it and started yelling at him. They didn't even bother to see if these drunken rumors were true. I mean, his life is over, even if he doesn't serve a prison sentence, even if he's acquitted. Um, I mean, if there's a retrial, if there's an appeal, his life's over. I mean, you could see the effect it's had on him. I just think it's very, very troubling. And I'm speaking from thousands of miles away, but I just think there's echoes of cases in the UK. Um, so anyone in Wisconsin, I imagine this is a high-profile case there. What's the feeling in Wisconsin? Are people on his side? Do they think it's justice? I don't think it is. I think it's glaringly obvious this man was acting in self-defense, standing up to a mob that was surrounding him. And what sort of message is that? I mean, some of those teenagers should be facing charges for the way they pushed him around. You could see it in the footage. It's just very, very troubling that you could have a group of people surrounding someone, and there is zero accountability for it. I mean, if the victim hadn't died, it's highly plausible he would have died. I really do think this is a strong case of self-defense. Um, And I just hope that when it comes to the sentencing hasn't been passed yet. It's all kind of speculative as to what tariffs could be set, but he could be looking at a life sentence. I just hope the judge really, really uses common sense and shows significant leniency, but apparently that isn't going to happen. And that is a travesty. That is a damning indictment of the Wisconsin justice system, which is basically rewarding a mob. That's how I feel about it. If there is more aspects to this, maybe people want to draw my attention to that. I'm going to put a link to the New York Post um, article that I've just read, but I find it very troubling because I think it sends out the wrong message. It's unfortunate that the young guy died, but people need to be responsible for the behavior. And if you're going to bully and harass a stranger, that stranger might fight back, especially if they feel cornered. I mean, I honestly feel the guy was fearing for his life. Because if you have a mob, he said, and I believe him, that he tried walking away. It's not like he ran up to them and attacked them. It was the other way around. It's just 100 years in prison. I mean, yes, someone died, but this is self-defense. It's so glaringly obvious that it is self-defense. And I just find it perplexing that the jury and the judge isn't taking that on board. How could they look at that footage? I hope they've seen the footage, um, and not consider that. Let me know your thoughts, especially if you're in Wisconsin.